Hey, what's up? This is Mel. Today I want to talk a little bit about how I've been making block patterns for the WordPress block directory. So the directory is not quite in beta yet. There's still a lot of features that are being worked on, but in the meantime, we're trying to pre-populate it with a bunch of really nice looking patterns, both to help test the directory and find bugs, and also so that when it does launch, it already has a bunch of really nice patterns in it. So I've put together 3 designs in Figma. So there's one which I'm calling poster, where it has a background image and then some text. There's one that I'm calling gallery with 3 images, just because am not sure what a better name for it might be. So this is just 3 images next to each other, with the center one being a little bit larger. And then the last pattern is just text, and I'm calling this one chapter opening. So yeah, the only thing in here would be text elements versus these more image heavy ones. So let's open the editor. I'm going to start with poster. So what I know here is that I do want it to have a little bit of a frame around this poster image. So to make the kind of frame around it, I'm going to start with a cover block. Let's give that a white background and make it full width. Inside of that, I'm going to put another cover block, and this is what is going to contain my image. So one thing I do want is to have kind of that space at the top and bottom. So I am going to go to padding, and I only want to do top and bottom padding. Let's start with 100. See how that feels. Not 1000, that's too much. Also, you might see that I don't want any sort of overlay here. So I'm just going to go down to the overlay and then change the opacity to 0, and that'll bring it back to the way the photo looks here. So I also want to make sure that this is big enough. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to drag this down until it feels right. And you'll notice the minimum height of cover over here is changing as I do that. So about here looks to be kind of the full height of the image. So now that I've done that, I want to start adding the text. And so one of the things I love now about the cover block is being able to change the positioning of the text inside of it. So I'm going to do it top right, and then inside here, I'm going to be adding heading, and I'm going to right align my heading. So so it's 72 pixels bold here, but what we see inside of this might not be how it looks in the editor. So what I'm going to do, make it bold. And so we don't have any sort of text transformation yet. So I'm actually going to manually type it in all caps. Nope. I'm going to make it black. And now let's see what 72 looks like. And I think we can go a little bit bigger. Cool. Let's leave it at 90, kind of see how that works. So I'm going to add a new paragraph for this second portion. So this is 18 pixels and bold, right aligned. And the color is this. And I just kind of grabbed this color from down here. Might actually make it just a little bit darker. Maybe like that. Okay. So that was, nope, not 1 pixel, it's 18 pixels. Was it 18? Yeah, it's 18. That looks pretty small here though. So I'm going to bump it up a little bit. And what I'm going to do actually here is reduce this line height so they're a little bit closer. Start with, maybe we'll just do 1. And that seems pretty okay. I'm going to drop this down actually just a little bit more. And then maybe, let's see if that looks a little bit better, that line height. So a lot of this is just kind of playing with it and seeing how it looks in context. So for example, let's save this. Let's preview it on mobile. So Right now you can see that the text goes outside of the container, which isn't good. There isn't a great solution for that right now. So what we're gonna do is we're actually just gonna put this down, and we'll keep it at that 72 pixels that I originally thought to use. So desktop. And so, it's not necessarily like as impactful as this kind of like full width text, but I think it still looks pretty good. It still has a cool poster effect, and I'm not afraid to kind of like make design compromises when it comes to implementing this stuff, especially since like I don't have to write any code for it, which is fantastic for me. So let's publish, just take a look. So I think this looks pretty cool, especially like if we look at changing the background color to something else, we still get that white frame around it that gives it kind of that artistic feel. And you know what? I might just tighten this up just a little bit more. And yeah, that feels okay. I think that's okay to go with. So let's take a look at our next one. It's this gallery with 3 images. So I'll make a new post, grab this title, and while I'm calling it a gallery, just because it is a couple of images, what I'm gonna do is use columns for this one. So I want 3 columns. I'm gonna start with this 25, 50, 25, although I think I'm gonna end up changing those widths. So selecting the columns, I'm gonna do wide width, and I'm just gonna add an image placeholder to all of these just to make it a little bit faster. So my right image, or my left image, is this pink one. My right image is this yellow one. And then my center image is this gray one. Don't want the caption there. And so you can see now we have the widths different, but we don't have them centered. But what's cool is we can go on each column and select align middle from this drop down. Great. And so, like I was thinking, 25 is a little bit low. Let's try 30 for each of these. So that leaves us at 60, no, 30, 40. Oh, I'm so good at math. Okay. And now, yeah, this looks pretty good. Let's preview it. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And just looking at mobile, it goes nicely down to 1 column. So on tablet, it does do this 3, which isn't ideal, but it is one of the limitations of the columns block right now. So if you do try a pattern like this, you'll just want to kind of keep that in mind. And if you're including your patterns in a custom theme, for example, you could add like a custom class to your pattern. So what you could do here is you have this column under advanced, you can add a class, and then in your theme CSS, you can target it if you want, kind of complete control of the CSS here. And so I'm feeling pretty good about this though, as it is. Hopefully we'll kind of have better column control at some point in the future. And once we do that, maybe it'll fix itself, or maybe we'll come back and revisit these. So now that we have both our gallery with 3 images and our poster, let us make a new post for the last one here, this chapter opening. And so since I have this kind of like full width background, I'm actually going to make this a group. And I'm doing a group here because I don't necessarily need an image on it. So go to the colors, background color is this purple. So we'll start here. We might not be able to get this light font weight, but we'll start with a heading. I'm gonna make it wide width. And once again, I'll go ahead and just make it uppercase for now. And there will eventually be a text transform option, just not here yet. It's going to be one of the features of full site editing. And I'll make it 72. And the text here is white. So one thing you might notice is that this is meant to be partial width, not full width, which I totally forgot about, so no worries. Let's go ahead and add columns. And so I want 2 columns for this container. And so we'll go with 70-30 here, go up and wide width. And what I'll do is I'll drag this into here. And so we're gonna leave this column blank entirely. So to get kind of the spacing here between the title and this content, I am going to add a spacer block. So just kind of a random amount here, whatever looks good. And we're gonna do, let's do 200. And so now we have another 2 columns. So we'll do a columns block. This one is probably about 30-70. Add a paragraph here. Chapter 1, bold, and white text. So let's see, both of these are 16 pixels. I'm not sure what the theme is offhand. It looks like it was 18 or higher. I designed the theme. I don't know why I don't know this. Probably 20. Okay, doesn't matter, whatever. Paragraph. So let's go to 16 and white. Nope, that's the background. White color. Let's bump this up. We'll go up to 18 for this text so it's easier to read. And I like 1.5 here for the body height, so I'm going to keep that as is. So let's preview this. And it looks pretty good. One thing that isn't great is how tight it is on the top and bottom. So since I chose to do a group, I have access to this padding here. And let's see, how much is it here? So it's about 80 pixels. Let's try 80. And I will get rid of the left and right, so we'll only have it on the bottom. And let's save this and preview again. Yeah, that looks better. I'm gonna bump up this bottom padding. Sometimes I like to add a little more padding on the bottom so it looks just a little more even. Cool. And give this just a quick preview. So we have just a little bit of an issue here with the font size where the S gets brought down to the next line. I don't know if I want to adjust this font size a little, bring it down, see if that helps. You know, it might help on some screens, it, you know, still might not help on others. We'll see if 60 looks okay. Let's see, back to desktop. I think that's still okay. And the line height here, so it was 105% when the font weight was light. Let's do 1.1 since it's regular, not light. And I think that still looks pretty okay. Maybe we'll go up a little bit. And sometimes it is kind of a compromise here since we don't have a great approach for responsive typography yet in the editor. But you might also be able to handle that in your theme or by adding some custom CSS if there's anything that, you know, really isn't working. So publish this and should be good to go now. So we have our 3 new patterns. So, amongst these, let's see, we have this chapter opening, our poster, and our gallery with 3 images. And I think I might submit this one just because it is only text, which is nice. We have a lot of submissions right now with images. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the editor and I am going to copy all content. And I'm going to make a new gist on GitHub. It doesn't matter what you select, honestly. I'm a designer. I don't care about this kind of thing. So I called that chapter opening. Make that public gist. I am also going to take a screenshot of this. And so now when I make a new issue here in the pattern directory repo, I'm going to select pattern submission. Cool. So paste in the screenshot. Categories were just text. We'll work our way back up. So I don't know that this is a great title, but we can always change that. And so let's close these. It's not using any images, so we don't need to worry about this image credits field. But if you do submit some, you'll have to be aware that you can only use images with a CC0 or a public domain license. And so for this block markup, we'll paste a link to this gist. And then why should it be included? Okay, so I'm just going to say this pattern is a bold type-driven design that can be used for blogs and storytellers. And so I will submit this issue. And that's it. So kind of to sum it up, really what I've been doing is a lot of playing around where I've been going into Figma, kind of like thinking up just vaguely what I want something to look like first, and then bringing it into Gutenberg. And then in Gutenberg, really what I'm doing here is just, trying to match the design, but, it doesn't need to be exact. The web is a very versatile medium. It's very flexible. So, what you see in something like Figma isn't necessarily what you're going to see live. And so you kind of just have to work within the existing constraints of the editor. And if you do feel like submitting anything to the directory, I would recommend really going for something that looks art directed. So using, we've been using a lot of imagery from nature, photography. Actually, we haven't been using a lot of photography, but we've used a lot of paintings. Especially there's a lot of really good art and painting that's available in the public domain. So for example, let's go look at one we've closed. This has kind of some cool imagery where it's old photography and then this illustration. Or for example, let's see. not this one. Okay, yeah, so some screen block prints here and wood block prints, not screen block prints. Whatever, you get the point. We've just been using a lot of stuff, especially from Raw Pixels public domain imagery, just because there's a lot of really good art and cool illustrations. And so it's a good source if you do want to use some imagery. And then the other thing we've been focusing on is kind of like real fake copy. So rather than using lorem ipsum, trying to make it look like it is actually using real copy. And so for the most part, we've either been writing that ourselves or, for example, this text is from a book in the public domain. So if you do want to take a shot at it, I advise doing that. If you're, you eventually want to make some patterns once the directory is live, you can submit, as many as you want, under your own username. So yeah, I would just recommend playing around with it because there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with block patterns that really weren't possible in the classic editor without either a lot of plugins or a lot of code experience. So being able to do something like this as a designer without needing to install extra plugins or write any code is great for me. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see all of your patterns sometime soon.